Morning, everyone. Welcome to Applied Economics. We are now at our 8th week, and for week 8, our topic is theory of production. So, for week 8, we will explain the input and output of relationship, and we will also describe the importance of law of diminishing return, and also analyze the different costs in production. So, let's proceed to our discussion for week 8. So, what is a theory? Of course, theory is a set of ideas formulated for reasoning to explain something. So, the theory of production is a must in principles of economics, since the problem of scarcity paves the way to expand production. The available products that we have, which are not sufficient to give satisfaction for everyone's demand, leads to increase the bulk of production. So it is very important why we need to know the theory of production. So for the theory of production, we have two elements of production. So we have the um, variable inputs and fixed inputs. So for let's put the input first. So inputs, these are called the factors of production. So what are the factors of production? The factors of production, we have land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. So it is the element that is used for product of finished or unfinished products. It is what actually take in to put up something. So example of this is one example is to manufacture sugar. The inputs are, of course, we need people. So those are our labor. We need chemicals. We need machinery. So these are our capitals, and of course our entrepreneur. And we also, of course, need the land in order for us to manufacture sugar and to sell the product. So the inputs are classified into two. We have the variable input and the fixed input. So let's first discuss variable input. So variable input, these are inputs that can be changed. You produce something over a period of time. In the business transaction, the variable inputs are the only inputs that you could adjust over short run business activities. Therefore, these inputs do not remain constant as you differ the volume of produce. Or example, so labor, raw materials like fertilizers, leather, wood, and then we also have electricity, office supplies, etc. Since variable inputs actually are expenditure, it is called variable uh, cost. So for variable inputs, these are factors of production that can be changed over a period of time. So it varies, depends on the demand and supply. So these are changeable inputs. So we also have fixed inputs. Ah, For fixed inputs, these are always constant. So hindi siya nagbabago. And as you produce something over a period of time. So these inputs can only be changed over a long run business of transaction. This remains constant regardless of the volume it produces. Example, we have machineries, equipment, a building, factory, plant. Fixed inputs are also expenditure in production, so it is known as fixed costs. So once again, variable inputs are variable cost and fixed inputs are also known as fixed costs. So another element of production is output. So for output, we have output. These are also called finished product or the produce. So it is the result of the combination of your factors of production or the inputs. So output, of course, if you have the input, which are the factors of reduction. So output, ito yung product mo na mismo. So this is the finished product or the produce, of course. So let's explain what is law of diminishing return. So it explains the additional output tends to decrease at a certain point as you increase your input. So the underlying condition of this law is the constant of a fixed input that study figure 1 and table 1. So we have here a figure 1 and also table 1. So we have here for table figure 1, we have the input or the variable costs or variable inputs or fixed costs or fixed inputs we have here on our left row. Meanwhile, in our columns, we have our output. So let's explain. Let's see. So for input and output, input is the farmer and output is the cavans of rice. So of course, if you have one farmer, so the one farmer only produces 2 cavans of rice. If you have 2 farmers, of course, it will produce 4 cavans of rice. So on and so forth. So let's watch a video in order for us to more know the law of diminishing return. So again, for the figure 1 and table 1, our analysis for this, it indicates the production function curve, and the maximum output that will yield through employing 5 and 6 farmers is 27 kavans. So let's take a look at that. Yes. And this is the point in the graph where it is attained peak and started to decline. After additional farmers or the variable input, of course, um, it employs it employs to be able to harvest more kavans of rice. There is a point where the total product already start to diminish, and that is the diminishing return or diminishing marginal product. The reason is no matter how many farmers you employ, as long as the size of land or fixed input is still the same, so it will not give additional harvest. The owner will decide as to how many farmers he will hire and how many kavans of rice he will obtain of a fixed hectare of land. So let's watch our video.
Jacob Clifford, welcome to ACDC Econ. Today we're going to find out what happens when you keep adding more and more workers and the law of diminishing marginal returns. Guys, seriously, we don't all need to be here right now. In this video, we're looking at the relationship between inputs, the resources to produce things, and outputs, the things that producers make. For example, when a pizza company hires more workers, what happens to the number of pizzas they can produce? Before we jump into it, there's a few details we have to cover. First, keep in mind that there's 2 types of resources, fixed resources and variable resources. Fixed resources are fixed. They don't change as you produce more, like a pizza oven. If you produce 1 pizza or 500 pizzas, you still need that 1 oven. Variable resources do change with the more that you produce. So the more pizzas you make, the more workers, dough, and cheese you need. When it comes to producing things, economists like to differentiate between the short run and the long run. Now, it's not a set amount of time, like 2 weeks. It's more like an idea. A company is in the short run when they have at least 1 fixed resource. So today, right now, a pizza restaurant is in the short run because they only have 1 oven. The long run is more about what could potentially happen in the future. So in the long run, all resources are variable. So what if the company had 2 ovens, or 3 ovens, or 10 ovens? The long run also has the idea of economies of scale, which I'll cover in a different video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about production in the short run, when there's at least 1 fixed resource. Okay, here we go. When you hire no workers, you get no output. But when you hire 1 worker, they have to do everything on their own. They can't specialize. 2 workers can split up the work and produce a whole lot more together than any one of them could on their own. This shows the benefits of specialization, right? 2 heads are better than 1. In this case, 2 hands are better than 1. But specialization has its limits. As you add more and more variable resources, eventually you're going to get less and less additional output. This is the idea of one of the most important concepts in economics, the law of diminishing marginal returns. As you continue to add variable resources to fixed resources, the additional output will eventually decrease. Notice that I said that it will eventually decrease. It can increase because of specialization, but you keep hiring more and more workers, eventually you get less and less output. Here's some made up numbers to help you understand the concept. Right here, this first column is number of inputs, in this case workers. The second column is the number of output, the pizzas they can produce in 30 minutes. These numbers show the law of diminishing marginal returns, but it's easier to see them by calculating something called the marginal product. That's the additional output generated from hiring one additional worker. Okay, pause the video, see if you can calculate the marginal product on your own. When you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day. The first worker can produce 5 pizzas, so the additional output they make is just those 5 pizzas. But when you hire 2 workers, they can produce 15. So the additional output from the second worker is an additional 10 pizzas. This shows the benefits of specialization. One worker can produce 5 pizzas on their own, but 2 workers can more than double that output. 3 workers can produce a total of 20 pizzas, but the additional output produced by that third worker is 5 pizzas. And of course the fourth worker adds an additional 2 pizzas, and the fifth worker adds an additional 0. But now at the sixth worker, the total output actually falls. So the marginal product is -4. Now keep in mind, this is not because the workers are lazy or dumb. It's because of fixed resources. Okay, here's a question. With which worker does the law of diminishing marginal returns set in? I want to be in America. I want to be in America. I have to be in America. Now it's not the sixth worker, it's the third worker. Notice the marginal product has been falling ever since the third worker. That's diminishing returns. It's not when it actually goes negative. That's negative returns, a completely different concept. Actually, there's 3 stages of returns. Right here is stage 1, where the marginal product is increasing because of specialization. Total product is increasing at an increasing rate. Right here is stage 2, because the marginal product is falling because of fixed resources and the law of diminishing marginal returns. Total product is increasing, but at a decreasing rate. Right here is stage 3, and the marginal product is negative, which means the total product is actually falling. This is because the workers are in each other's way and they're fumbling over each other, and there's just way too many cooks in the kitchen. Bonus round! Okay, now hopefully you understand it with all the numbers. Let's take all this information and put it on a graph, right? Economists love graphs. Okay, right here is the total product curve, and right here is the marginal product curve. Now you should be able to spot the 3 stages of returns by looking at the graph. Right here is stage 1, because total product's increasing at an increasing rate, and the marginal product is going up. Right here is stage 2, because the total product is going up, but at a decreasing rate, and the marginal product is falling. Right here is stage 3, and the total product is falling because the marginal product is negative. Practical application round! It's important to keep in mind that we're talking about economic theory here. The numbers in real life are never as perfect as the textbook. But the idea of diminishing marginal returns is super important for anyone who just wants to run a business and figure out how many workers to hire, to a government official trying to figure out the best economic policy. Think of a farmer fertilizing their land, right? A little bit of fertilizer, that helps. More fertilizer maybe gives you a little bit more output, but you can't get more and more output from more and more fertilizer. In fact, eventually the more fertilizer you put, the less output you're going to get. The same idea might apply to the government. A little bit of environmental regulation might help the environment a whole lot. But more and more regulation will eventually do less and less additional benefit to the environment. Anyways, it's important to understand this is just not textbook stuff. This actually can help you make decisions in your life, all right? Thanks for watching. Till next time.
So I'll just post the link for this wonderful discussion. So as you can see, it is well discussed here, the law of diminishing returns and the product function, as well as how to compute the marginal product. So we have here again the input and output and the marginal product. So let's go back to our discussion. So let's go back. So cost of production. So initially, any businesses that exist spend cost production. So it is the responsibility of the entrepreneur to manage his business to gain profit. and he should know how to compute for the cost and profit. So learning to analyze graphical illustration like in figure 1 would enable him to decide whether to stop production, when to attain maximum revenue, and what is the best combination of possible resources available. So here are our formulas or computation of different costs in production. So in order for us to find the total fixed cost, so total cost should be subtracted to our total variable cost. So in order for us to find our total variable cost, total cost subtracted to total fixed cost. And in order for us to find total cost, total fixed cost should be added to our total variable cost. Now let's go on to our average fixed cost. So for average fixed cost, total fixed cost is divided by quantity. So we have here average fixed cost, total fixed cost divided by quantity. Also, in order for us to find our average variable cost, so total variable cost divided by quantity. And for average total cost is divided by quantity. And to order for us to find the marginal cost, change in total cost is divided by change in quantity. Wherein change, so again, triangle is our symbol for change. So change in TC, total cost, and change in quantity. Wherein again, um, for us to find the total cost of fixed cost is plus total variable cost. Also, total cost is total cost minus our total cost as well. Our quantity is Q2 minus Q1. So quantity of 2 and quantity of 1. Also to find our, so we have here explanation. So total cost is the sum of all the fixed and variable costs in producing a product over a period of time. And also fixed cost is the cost incurred which does not change regardless of the volume of the product produced. And variable cost is the cost incurred that change as output is produced over a time. And marginal cost is the additional cost incurred in producing additional unit of product. So again, we have here table number 2. So the example here will show the different cost of production and the illustration in shown figure below. So we have here TP is our total production, and TFC is our total fixed cost. So TVC is our total variable cost, and TC is our total cost. AFC is our average fixed cost. AVC is our average variable costs, and MC is our marginal cost. TR is our um, total cost and profit, total revenue and our profit. So in order for us to find our profit, um, we just have to subtract total revenue from our total cost. So again, let's check how, let's see, we have here total revenue here in our second to the last column and our total cost. So if we subtract 5 from 5, our profit is 0. So in order for us to find profit, again, total revenue to be subtracted to our total cost. So as we continue to increase our production, You can also continue to incur additional costs. It does not allow or follow that whenever you have the greatest number of production produced, maximum profit is at hand. So in our table, we have noticed that the producer should stop producing a total product 5 or 6 where it has the greatest profit. So check out in your handouts or PDF files, we could see. So in row 5 and 6, so the producer stopped producing. The ideal cost to incur should be under the total product 5. So where there would only 20 units of total variable cost to spend against 25 units total variable cost of total product 6. So we have here our short run. So short run is the period of time in production where only the variable inputs or costs could be changed. So example, we have here our additional raw materials, laborers. So these are examples of a short run production. For long run, this is a period of time in production where the producer could already change his fixed input. So again, or for fixed input and fixed cost, these are unchanged. They could be changed, but in the long run or long period of time. So example is the expansion of plant sites, purchase of new equipment and machineries. So in order for us to um, understand more the computation of different costs in production, let's watch another video.
How you doing, Econ students? This is Mr. Clifford. Welcome to ACDC Econ. Right now, I'm going to talk about cost curves. If there's one complaint about learning microeconomics, it's cost curves. I mean, no one gets excited about cost curves. They might not be exciting, but cost curves are super essential. Now, someday you might own a business, and it's important to understand the cost of production. Calculating your costs is going to help you figure out your profit, but it also helps you figure out how many units to produce. And you'll be doing these calculations for costs and drawing the cost curves a whole lot in microeconomics. So although it seems kind of bland, it's time to get excited about costs. So let's go over the different types of costs. Every company has two different types of costs: fixed costs and variable costs. Fixed costs are the costs that don't change with the amount produced. Like if you're a pizza company, the oven, right? You only have one, it's a fixed resource. It doesn't matter how many pizzas produced, you still have to pay for the oven. Another example might be the manager's salary, right? You still need a manager whether you produce 1 unit or 1,000 units, and so the manager's salary is a fixed cost. So variable costs do change with the amount produced. So if you produce more output, you're going to need more resources. So raw materials, labor, electricity are all examples of variable resources, and that's variable costs. If there's only two types of costs, fixed and variable, then total cost must be fixed plus variable cost. And there's also marginal cost. Marginal cost is the additional cost of producing one more output. If you're a pizza restaurant, it's the cost of producing one additional pizza. It's the change in total cost divided by the change in output. So now you understand the total cost. There's total fixed cost, total variable cost, total cost, and marginal cost. Now let's see if you can calculate them on your own. Right here I have the cost for a given firm. Right? We have 0 output, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units that they could produce. I've also given you the variable cost and the fixed cost producing no output. I want you to copy this chart on your piece of paper and finish off these columns. Calculate the fixed cost, the total cost, and the marginal cost. Pause the video and then do those calculations and I'll go over the answers. What's the fixed cost of producing 1 unit? Well, it's $10. For 2 units, it's $10. For 3 units, it's $10. Why? Because it's fixed. It doesn't matter how many units produced, you still pay $10 fixed cost. Total cost is the variable plus the fixed cost. So when you produce nothing, you still have a total cost of $10. Remember, that's because you have to pay that fixed cost. For 1 unit, it's $20. For 2 units, it's $27. Then 35, 50, 70, and 120. And it's really that simple. Variable cost plus fixed cost equals total cost. The marginal cost is the change in total cost from producing an additional output. So if the total cost of producing nothing is $10 and the total cost of producing 1 unit is $20, the additional cost of that first unit must be 10. Since the total cost of 2 units is 27, the additional cost of that second unit must be an additional $7. So again, the marginal cost is the change in total cost divided by the change in output. So it's 8, 15, 20, and $50. Now that you can calculate these costs, let's calculate the per unit costs. There's average variable cost, average fixed cost, and average total cost. The average variable cost is the total variable cost divided by the quantity. Average fixed cost is the fixed cost divided by the quantity. And the average total cost is the total cost divided by the quantity. Most of the time when you see these, you're going to see them by the acronym. So ABC, AFC, and ATC. Get used to that. Now let's go see if you can actually use those equations and calculate the average cost curves. I want you to calculate the average total cost of 6 units, the average fixed cost of 2 units, the average variable cost of 4 units, the average total cost of 1 unit, and calculate all three, the average variable, average fixed, and average total for 5 units. So go back to your paper, number 1 through 7, and make sure to calculate each one of these. Pause the video and I'll go over them. Alright, the average total cost of 6 units is $20. That's because the total cost is $120 and we're producing 6 units. So if the total cost is $120 and you produce 6 units, how much did each one cost on average? Well, $20. The average fixed cost of 2 units is $5, right? It's the $10 fixed cost divided by 2 units. That gives us $5. The average variable cost of 4 units is the $40 variable cost, total variable cost, divided by the 4 units that we produced. So it's going to be $10. The average total cost of 1 unit is $20. If 1 unit costs a total of $20, then on average, that 1 unit costs $20. Now let's take a step back and find out something you might not have noticed first time around. Notice that the average variable cost plus the average fixed cost equals the average total cost. For example, for 5 units, the average variable cost was $12, the average fixed cost was $2, and the average total cost was $14. 12 plus 2 equals 14. That's how it is for every single one of these. The average variable cost plus the average fixed cost equals the average total cost. Actually, this is not that bad. I kind of like cost curves. The next thing you're going to do is going to take all these costs from the chart and you're going to put it on a graph. To learn more about that graph and to find out how to use it, you got to watch the next video. If you like these videos, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment below. Okay? Till next time.
So let's watch our next video.
Students, this is Mr. Clifford. Welcome to ACDC Econ. In the previous video, I defined the different types of costs: fixed cost, variable cost, total cost, and marginal cost. You used the chart to calculate each one of these, and you also calculated the average cost curves: average variable cost, average fixed cost, and average total cost. If you haven't seen that video, make sure to go back because you're going to need that for what we're going to do right now. Because right now, we're going to find out what these cost curves look like on the graph. If you plotted the total cost, you'd come up with a graph just like this. Right here, the horizontal line is fixed cost, and then right here is variable cost. Now, since fixed cost plus variable cost equals total cost, the total cost curve would look like that. You might see this graph on a test, but really it's not as important as the per unit cost curves. I'm talking about marginal cost, average total cost, average variable cost, and average fixed cost. The per unit cost curves look like this based on the calculations we did in the previous video. First is the average fixed cost. Notice how it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's an asymptote. That's because you're taking the fixed cost, which is a set amount, and dividing it by larger and larger quantities. So the average fixed cost is going to keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Next up is the marginal cost curve. Marginal cost always goes down and up because of the law of diminishing marginal returns. Average variable cost goes down and up, and it hits marginal cost at average variable cost minimum point. The average total cost also goes down and back up, and it hits marginal cost at ATC's minimum. Notice the vertical distance right here is the same as the vertical distance right there. That's because the average fixed cost plus the average variable cost equals the average total cost. Now let's talk about how you're going to actually use this graph. You might get a question on a test that says, how much does the 5th unit cost? To figure that out, just go straight up from 5 units. The graph tells you the marginal cost of producing 5 units is $20. The average total cost of 5 units is $14. The average variable is 12, and the average fixed is 2. Again, remember, the average fixed of 2 plus the average variable of 12 equals the average total of 14. But the best part of this graph is the fact that you can use it to calculate total costs. For example, you know that each one of those 5 units costs $14 on average. Well, how much does 5 units cost in total? What's the total cost of 5 units? Well, it's $70. It's that box right there. That's the total cost. Of that $70, how much is variable and how much is fixed? To figure that out, all you gotta do is go up to the average variable cost at 5 units, which is $12. 12 times 5 is 60. So that box right there of $60 is the variable cost of producing 5 units. If the variable cost is 60 and the total cost is 70, then the fixed cost must be 10. That's the average fixed cost of $2 times 5 units gives me $10 of fixed costs. That's the box right there. Yeah, all right. I kind of like this. I'm getting into cost curves. I kind of like it. Yeah, cost curves. Woo! Cost curves, cost curves, cost curves. You're going to be using these cost curves a whole lot, so feel very comfortable calculating the total, variable, and fixed costs. What you're going to find out is that not all four of these curves are equally important. The real important ones are marginal cost and average total cost. Those are the ones you're going to be drawing a whole lot. I hope this video helped you understand cost curves. Make sure to check out.
So once again, thank you for watching this video. Uh, for applied economics, week 8. So we have two activities. We have activity 1 and activity 2. So kindly answer activity 1 and activity 2. We also have some references in your handouts or PDF files. So kindly check on it as well. So thank you once again, everyone, and God bless. So I will just share a Bible verse from the book of Mark, chapter 9, verse 23. Said Jesus, everything is possible for one who believes. So thank you once again, and God bless.